This channel explores history, battles, and historical events for educational purposes only. We do not promote war or violence. Our goal is to learn from the past and understand the world. Battlefield Legends History. The Rise and Fall of Napoleon Epic History Documentary. From the storm of revolution, from the blood-soaked streets of Paris, a figure emerged who would forever alter the fate of Europe. His name was Napoleon Bonaparte. A man who rose from obscurity to command empires, bend kings to his will, and shape the destiny of nations. His story is not simply that of a conqueror, but of a force of nature, brilliant, relentless, and ultimately doomed by the very ambition that made him great. Early life and ambition. Napoleon was born in 1769 on the rugged island of Corsica, a land that had only recently been absorbed into France. He came from a modest family of minor nobility, with little wealth and no illustrious family name to open doors for him. From an early age, he showed extraordinary intelligence and a fierce determination to rise above his circumstances. Sent to military schools in mainland France, young Napoleon was mocked for his Corsican accent and treated as an outsider. Yet he immersed himself in history, mathematics, and the science of artillery, absorbing strategy and tactics that would later define his genius. Even as a boy, he dreamed of glory, of shaping empires, and of leaving a mark on history. The Revolution and the Young General. In 1789, the French Revolution erupted. Thrones crumbled, monarchs trembled, and the world seemed on the brink of chaos. Napoleon, barely 20, saw opportunity in the turmoil. At the Siege of Toulon in 1793, he demonstrated extraordinary skill in artillery, turning the tide against British forces. This victory made him a hero overnight and marked the beginning of a meteoric military career. Soon he was entrusted with armies in Italy. Facing larger and better-equipped forces, Napoleon applied daring tactics and rapid maneuvers to secure victory after victory. His soldiers revered him for his courage and leadership, while his enemies feared his strategic brilliance. On the battlefield, he seemed to see 10 moves ahead, as if commanding a vast chessboard rather than ordinary soldiers. Egypt and the dream of empire. Not content with victories in Europe, Napoleon set his sights on Egypt in 1798, hoping to undermine British trade routes and establish a new empire. The Egyptian campaign was a mixture of triumph and disaster. He won battles on land but suffered a crushing naval defeat at the hands of Admiral Nelson at the Battle of the Nile. Despite setbacks, his aura of invincibility only grew. In Egypt, Napoleon combined military ambition with intellectual curiosity, studying ancient civilizations and sponsoring scientific exploration. To his men, he was not merely a general, he was destiny incarnate, a man seemingly larger than life itself. The seizure of power. By 1799, France was exhausted by revolution, instability, and foreign wars. Napoleon returned from Egypt, seizing power in a coup d'état. In 1804, he crowned himself Emperor of the French, an audacious act that signaled his independence from the Church and all traditional authority. As emperor, Napoleon implemented sweeping reforms. He codified laws, creating the Napoleonic Code, which emphasized equality before the law, property rights, and meritocracy. He centralized administration, built schools, and established a system that rewarded talent over birthright. Yet, his ambitions extended far beyond France. Napoleon envisioned a Europe reshaped in his image, under his control. The Grande Armée in the zenith of power. The Grande Armée, possibly the greatest military force of its era, carried Napoleon's banners across the continent. At Austerlitz in 1805, he orchestrated one of history's most brilliant victories, defeating the combined armies of Austria and Russia in a single day. Entire nations fell before him, kings bowed, and the map of Europe was rewritten. Yet cracks began to appear. Napoleon's empire depended on constant conquest and strict control over occupied territories. In Spain, guerrilla warfare drained French resources. At sea, the British Navy remained unconquered, frustrating Napoleon's attempts to dominate trade. And in the east, Russia loomed, vast, harsh, and unyielding. The invasion of Russia. In 1812, Napoleon undertook his most ambitious campaign, the invasion of Russia. He marched with over 600,000 men, the largest European army ever assembled. But the Russians avoided direct confrontation, instead retreating and destroying resources as they went, leaving the French army exposed. When Napoleon finally reached Moscow, the city was ablaze, abandoned by its inhabitants. The winter arrived mercilessly, and hunger, frostbite, and constant ambushes decimated the Grande Armée. From an army of hundreds of thousands, only a shadow returned, marking the beginning of Napoleon's decline. The fall. Europe united against him. Defeat followed defeat. In 1814, Paris fell and Napoleon abdicated, exiled to the island of Elba. Yet he would not remain silent. In 1815 he escaped Elba, returning to France and rallying the army and populace. For 100 days he regained power, inspiring hope and fear alike. But at Waterloo his fate was sealed. Facing the Duke of Wellington and the Prussian army, Napoleon fought with determination, but rain, mud, and strategic errors doomed his forces. By nightfall, the empire he had built from the ground up was gone forever. Exiled once more, this time to St. Helena in the remote South Atlantic, Napoleon spent his final years under constant watch, writing memoirs, reflecting on his victories and defeats, and contemplating the legacy he would leave behind. Legacy. Napoleon Bonaparte died in 1821, far from France, far from the glory he once commanded. Yet his shadow endures. To some, he is a hero who spread the ideals of merit, law, and modernization. To others, he is a tyrant whose ambition drenched Europe in blood. One truth remains. Napoleon was more than a man. He was an idea of power, ambition, and destiny. He rose like a storm, reshaped the world, and fell, leaving behind a legend that time itself cannot erase. If you enjoyed this journey through history, make sure to subscribe to the channel and share this video with a friend who loves history. Together we can explore the epic stories of the past.